Welcome to Twin Pair Tutorials. Today we are tackling the topic of bottle raising kids versus dam raising kids. There are pros and cons to each. Some people are vow that one way is the best way. Some people do what's called combination raising. But to really look at this topic from what you, a newbie goat owner or dairy goat breeder, is experiencing, I am going to be interviewing a very new dairy goat breeder on this very topic. She is going to be asking me all of the questions that she's having as she's getting ready for her first kidding season. I hope we give you all the information that you came here looking for. And remember that these are viewer-supported tutorials. So if you really benefit from this and I answer all the questions you had today, please consider joining us on Patreon like the other small farms who do. Enjoy the episode. Well, today I'm very excited to have Rachel Skinner join us. Rachel is new to dairy goats. She has 4 goats so far, 2 does and 2 wethers. This is going to be Rachel's first season kidding. And she reached out to me with questions about bottle raising babies, bottle feeding versus dam raising, combination raising. And I thought, what better way for me to really help newbies who are contemplating this and getting ready for their first kidding season than having someone new like Rachel on to ask all the questions that's going through your mind right now. So thank you for joining us today, Rachel.
Thank you for having me. This is a real treat.
Yeah. So Rachel has a specific issue too, that you live on a 1/4 acre in the city. So you have things to consider, like noise and neighbors.
Right.
So go ahead and start asking me your questions that are burning in your mind about bottle raising and dam raising.
Okay. Well, first of all, just in doing the research, it seems like there are really quite a few ways to go about doing this. There's the bottle raising, there's dam raising full time, there's dam raising with partial separation, whether you separate them at night or you separate them during the day. And then this sort of hybrid idea of bottle feeding and dam raising. So I'll start with my bottle feeding questions. So the first one is, what are the reasons people choose to bottle raise over dam raise? It seems like it would be kind of hard on the dam and the kids, to be separated. So there must be some really good reasons to do it.
That is a great question, and one I think I asked initially when I was starting, because I didn't understand why you would want to bottle raise when dams are really good at their job. They're very good at feeding their kids around the clock. That said, there occasionally will be a kid who is too weak, or maybe mom rejects him and you need to bottle raise that kid. I think pretty much all of us would step in at that point just to help a kid.
Right.
But the other reason that people bottle raise, there are a few. One is if you bottle raise a kid, like exclusively, you can get them off your farm sooner if you are planning to sell them. They can pretty much go right away. There's no delay, where if you are going to dam raise, most people dam raise for 2 to 3 months, which is a lot longer time period to take care of them on your farm. The second reason is that people who show their goats want that doe to have a very even udder. And oftentimes dam raising will result in an uneven udder, especially if they have a single, or they have triplets, or if they have one kid who's enormous and a big, got a really big appetite, and then a little scrawny one. I have noticed myself that the kids will tend towards the teat with the biggest orifice, meaning that the milk expresses more easily. So when I see lopsided udders, even on a doe that has equal sized twins, is typically because one of her teats is easier to drink out of than
that makes sense.
Yeah, and the third reason I would say is biosecurity. So some people do not allow their kids to drink even one sip from mom because of fear of transmission of CAE, that's caprine encephalitis. I personally believe that if you have a herd that has consistently tested negative for CAE every year, forever and always, I don't think you have as much risk. That's my personal opinion. People who, the more you take your goats off the farm, or the more you bring in outside goats, the greater odds you are of bringing CAE in.
Okay.
But the only way that CAE is transmitted is through milk. So that's also why you'll see people who pull the kids immediately and only feed pasteurized colostrum,
Right.
to prevent disease, as well as they're fearful of other bacteria. So those are three sort of main reasons. The fourth is the friendliness factor. Some people believe that kids will only turn into friendly goats if they are bottle raised. I don't think that's 100% true personally. It does certainly help them be people oriented.
So, two more questions about bottle raising. Number one, I'm guessing they have to be completely separated or it doesn't work. Like they're in completely different places on your farm.
That's a good question. So if you are exclusively bottle raising, the what's interesting is that psychologically for the kid, when they're first born, they're very malleable and you can get them on the bottle very easily. You can take them away from mom very easily. They don't have any instinct yet to want to be with mom.
Okay.
Mom, on the other hand, has a lot of bonding hormones. Mom really wants to be with her kids. So we find that if we separate them within the first 48 hours of life, the kid is completely fine at taking a bottle and has no stress about it. The dam will have a lot of stress if she's a good mom. I've had the occasional doe, very rarely, who is not into the mom gig and could care less, but that's pretty rare. So typically I will separate the mom in a different place because she will cry. If you separate the kids very young, they will not cry.
Okay.
The longer they are with their mom, that changes. I would say by about 3 days old, they are getting bonded to mom and do not want to be separated from their mom. When they're newborns, they honestly don't care.
Okay. And then I would guess that this might be the loudest option as far as kids, because they're probably always calling for their bottles, right?
I would actually disagree. I would say combination raising is typically the most stressful because then the kids are calling for mom. Bottle babies will only really cry when it's getting near a mealtime.
Okay.
They eat more per meal, so they are fuller and kind of I don't know if you know the term milk drunk, that human babies get and other babies get. When they have a really full belly, they can pass out and be pretty chill. Where when you combination raise, that period where they are separated from mom is typically very loud and very stressful.
Okay. So then I have some questions on dam raising because there seems to be quite a few ways to do it. So there's the full-time dam raising, which I'm particularly interested in because, well, I'm guessing it's the quietest. And I think you had mentioned that before. But then the question is do you get any milk and how do you go about doing that if the babies are just, drinking at their leisure all day long? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I will definitely say the easiest thing on you and the easiest thing on the kids, at least for the period of time they're with their mom, is to have them with mom 24/7. That means that you can go out to dinner and that you don't have to worry about milking and make your life really simple. Typically, people who do that will sometimes still put the does up on the milk stand once or twice a day. You're not going to get very much milk for yourself. It also depends, of course, on the doe's genetics. Does she produce a lot of milk or not? Are her kids really big and taking all the milk or not?
I know that some people do that way. But in general, if it really depends on how much milk you want for yourself, you're not going to get a whole lot. And on the flip side of that, when you do wean the kids off, mom will have more milk, having dam raised than she would have if you had pulled off her kids and then just milked her twice a day. Kids, it's a supply demand. So having those kids, asking for milk 24/7 from her udder, she will produce more milk over the course of her lactation than if the kids had been pulled and you hand milked her or machine straight from the get-go.
So our family getting the milk would just be delayed. We would still get it ultimately when the kids go to their new home, or when they're weaned.
Yep.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. So then there's the separating at night versus the separating at day. And those seem very similar, just like what your preference is when you want to separate them. And I like that idea because then you get to go out in the morning and you have your milk, and then the babies are with their moms all day. So it seems like sort of a nice, I don't know, a nice method for the mom and the baby, and we get milk. But I'm guessing it probably is a little loud when you go out there to milk in the morning and the kids know that they're about to be reunited. So I was just curious what you think about that.
Yeah, a lot of people do that, and they usually start when the kids are about 2 to 3 weeks of age. It will tend to be quieter overnight because everyone will sleep. Usually everybody's, closed in for the night. It will be noisy in the morning until they are back with mom. That's true. I have a friend that instead of separating them at night, she uses teat tape to tape off mom at night so that they can't get the milk, but that they're with mom. So therefore they're more quiet and they're less stressed because they're laying there with mom, but they can't drink any milk from mom. So you do have to get really good at the teat tape because they're clever about getting it off.
I bet.
But that is a method that they have used to combination raise. And then also if they know that they're going to have to leave or be busy first thing in the morning, they just don't teat tape mom. And so then they don't have to milk in the morning. So they've made it more flexible for themselves. Mind you, they're not worried about the evenness of udder or anything like that.
Right.
They're doing it so that they can have milk when they want it and not have to deal with it when they don't want to deal with it.
Yeah. That sounds like a fabulous way to go. I like that.
Yeah, I had never done it, and she recommended it to me because they'd had a lot of success with it. I mean, their goals are very different than mine.
Right.
Because one of the things too, there's a lot of different reasons, like if you do milk test and whatnot, that you might need to separate kids from dams. And so there are different methods. Some people will put, if they are going to separate, will actually put them in adjoining pens so that mom and babies can still like sleep on the fence together, but not be together, things like that. But there are very clever dams who are good at feeding their kids through the fence.
Oh, that's great. Okay, and so then the last idea that I heard of recently was this sort of hybrid method where you do both, which sounds kind of like a lot of work. So I'm curious where that fits in the picture and why it's better than, or why someone might choose that over the others.
So the combination raising is trying to get the best of both worlds. So you're trying to get the combination of having milk from mom for yourself, but also the benefit of having a bottle raised kid, meaning, more people oriented, more friendly. So some people who do the separation at night will milk mom in the morning and give kids a bottle before reuniting them with their dam. Said introducing a bottle at 2 and 3 weeks old is quite a bit harder than it is when they're newborns. This can vary per breed. My friend who raised Nubians and Nigerians would tell you that Nubians were dumb. I'm sorry, Nubian breeders, but that the Nubian babies were very easy to take a bottle whenever. And where the Nigerian babies, once they, are beyond a few days old, it can be hard to introduce a bottle. That said, if you're willing to work at it, you can usually, but they have to get pretty hungry. introduce a bottle later. But yeah, in my experience, the sooner you introduce a bottle, the easier it goes.
And as far as like the kids friendliness, that's pretty important for our little family farm. So I'm guessing one can be successful with that without bottle feeding. So just take a lot of like purposeful intention to be with those kids.
Absolutely. So there are a couple different things at play. I will say genetics do absolutely play a role. I've had dam lines that always produce kids that are very antisocial no matter what you do. But early on, when we only had a few goats, the situation you're in, when those kids were born, oh man, they were held and cuddled and handled, you know, multiple times a day, every single day, because we only had a few and we were very excited, and we'd have all our friends over and their kids over and all that to socialize the goats. And those kids were people oriented. And I didn't have any problem with them being handled. The more goats I got and the less I handled the babies in general, just because if I had so many, therefore they were probably less people oriented because they'd just been left in a pen and I hadn't, you know, they had not been socialized at all. But I have had some that no matter what you do, even bottle raising, like you bottle raise them and they're still pretty skeptical about humans. And I do see that more genetically in some lines of goats. And they do learn from mom. If mom is not people oriented, or if mom runs from you, those kids will learn whatever her tick is. I sold a very nice doe last year who had a very nice kid, and I loved the kid and definitely wanted to keep the kid. She was perfect fit for my breeding program, but mom was a schizo. And I did not want that kid to learn her mom's schizo behavior because I really I thought that kid was worth working with. And I thought I would be shooting myself in the foot if she learned her mom's crazy personality. Yeah.
Okay. I think those are most of my questions. It's given me a lot of food for thought, and I do love the idea of the taping the teats and keeping them together. That was not even on my list of things, and I love that idea.
Yeah, so if anybody's wanting to look that up, the 3M makes a tape called Micropore, and you can buy a box of it on Amazon, and it has like 8 rolls of tape in it, and it'll last you a really long time. You just need to, before it's important, before you have like a stressful night where you need to for sure leave milk in the dam, practice with the tape, putting it on, and see what method works for preventing the kids from getting it off. And the last thing I'll add in terms of bottle raising, you haven't asked this specifically, but I think is important. You have a few different choices in terms of what goes into their bottle. You can put mom's milk into their bottle. You can pasteurize that or not yourself. You can just do it on the stovetop. Some people will say, well, shouldn't I use formula? And I will highly discourage you, unless you have no other options, from using a store-bought formula. They tend to lead to all kinds of GI issues. If you have no access to goat milk, it is better to use whole cow's milk from the store than to use a powdered formula. So let's say you only have a small amount of goat milk, or if let's say when I've sold bottle kids, I will send them with some goat milk, and then I'll suggest that they start to cut it with the whole cow's milk from the grocery store, and then transition that kid wholly onto whole cow's milk. You can, you buy the cheapest milk. If you want to go organic, you can go organic, or if you want to just go to Walmart and buy the cheapest milk you can possibly buy, whole cow's milk, and it's pasteurized, so you don't have to worry about the transmission of any diseases.
What if we can get a hold of goat's milk that's at the store, it's pasteurized, but it's in the refrigerator section? Is that better than cow's milk for them?
I do have a friend who told me she raised some bottle kids on store-bought goat's milk and that it went fine for her. It's definitely a more expensive choice,
Yes.
I think you can do that, but I honestly don't necessarily feel that it's advantageous over cow's milk. I will also say that, let's say someone says, oh, I have plenty of goat's milk, I can sell you some. Do pasteurize that milk, because we do not know what diseases or pathogens may be in that milk coming from another farm. I would, it's one thing if you're using your own milk on your own animals that you've tested. Totally different story if you are buying outside milk from another farm. And pasteurizing is really easy. Put it in a pot on your stove, get it to 165 for 30 seconds. It's as easy as that.
Now, what if you need colostrum for those first few days, and for some reason you can't get it from your goat? Like there are too many kids and she's, rejected the runt or something like that.
If you have a situation where she's rejected the runt, I just clip mom to the fence, and they really need, I mean, we're talking like tablespoons. It's not very much milk.
Okay.
So I would try to get it from the dam herself. I would definitely recommend, if this is your first season kidding, to steal a couple of ice cubes worth of colostrum and save them for next year. Also, I would recommend that if you have a doe who has excess milk, like she has one kid and tons of colostrum, take like 2/3 of it, save it for yourself, put it in the freezer and mark it in a bag. And then we've also had does, even if they lost all of their kids and none of the kids survived, I'm not letting any of that colostrum go to waste. I'm going to keep every drop of it, and save it for an emergency. So ideally you'll be able to get some from mom. I will say I've had a few does have C-sections, and I learned I needed to milk out that colostrum before we put them under for the C-section. So that then, because what happens is mom is completely knocked out. Mom may not even survive C-section, but her kids live. And then I need to have colostrum, because once I get them going, they need to eat, and mom is toast. I mean, mom might just be knocked out from the surgery, but she's not capable, and I need to absolutely need to fill in. Learned that one the hard way the first time I had a C-section. And then if all of else fails, have a connection. Try to early on in your goating, find other people in your community. Doesn't even have to be the same breed as you, who have goats, so that you can call upon them in an emergency. Goat people, what I love about this community is we do tend to be very helpful each other. And if somebody's in a pinch, they might be able to help you out with some colostrum.
Okay, great.
Cool. Well, I hope that this has been really educational for a lot of people and given you some food for thought as you contemplate bottle raising and dam raising. Every goat keeper will have a different opinion about this. These are based on my personal experiences. And ultimately, you have to figure out what's best for you and your needs in your location with the goats that you have and the personalities that they have, and be willing to be flexible. If something's not working, try something else.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
You are so welcome.